we live in a society that scoffs at setting limits. You often hear phrases like the sky's the limit, aim to have it all, and don't limit yourself.
I would argue that you should definitely dream big and examine any subconscious limits that may be holding you back.
However, an important step in achieving your goals and turning your dreams into reality is to set carefully chosen limits.
After all, limits help to define, give shape, and add substance to your dreams.
On the one hand, the laws of physics limit you and your potential, while on the other, you must set some limits yourself to keep up with the daily discipline more easily and to more easily achieve your goals.
We humans are pattern-based beings. Seeing patterns, even everywhere there are none, and an important part of patterns are limits.
Limits are nothing but minimums and maximums in our lives. The especially important ones are daily and weekly limits.
The simple idea is that we have a minimum and a maximum number of units we're prepared to spend on a certain activity.
Having limits helps us organize investments of our time, energy, and other resources.
The idea of limits is to not overdo it or invest too few of our resources into a specific thing. There is an optimal amount of investment needed for everything we do in life.
If we invest more, we're wasting resources or hurting ourselves. If we invest less than necessary, things don't go into the direction we want.
The big challenge lies in the fact that the limits aren't always in line with our instincts and emotional needs. That's why we need self-discipline.
During the past few years, we've set several limits for ourselves that have been of great use in helping us achieve our goals.
We're going to share 8 of them with you so that you can consider applying these limits in your own life.
We all have strengths and weaknesses, and one of those weaknesses is food.
We all love eating. You may have heard that you can't outrun food, and I can attest to the truth of this statement.
Worldwide obesity has nearly tripled since 1975. In 2016, more than the limit of x squared plus 0.21 as x approaches to 1.3 billion adults. The limit 4x minus 2 as x approaches to 5 years and older were overweight. The limit of x to the 4th power plus 25 as x approaches to 5 million were obese.
Limit x squared plus 3 as x approaches to 6% of adults age. Limit x squared plus 2 as x approaches to 4 years and over. We're overweight in the year 2016. And limit 6x plus 1 as x approaches to 2% were obese. Most of the world's population lives in countries where overweight and obesity kills more people than hunger.
Limit 7x minus 1 as x approaches to 6 million children under the age of limit 2x plus 1 as x approaches to 2 were overweight or obese in 2016. Over the limit 4x as x approaches to 85 million children and adolescents aged limit 3x minus 1 as x approaches to 2 to limit 6x plus 1 as x approaches to 3 were overweight or obese in 2016.
But obesity is preventable. The solution to the problem of overeating was portion control. That is, to limit the amount of food to be ingested.
There are many ways to do this. One way is to simply use the size of your hand to gauge portion sizes. For example, 1 serving of protein is the size of the palm of your hand.
You can also use containers that come in different sizes and colors for proteins, fruits, vegetables, carbohydrates, fats, seeds, and dressings.
A third option is to limit your portions by using smaller plates. However you decide to do it, limiting your food intake will help you to lose weight, be healthier, and live longer.
You can't achieve all of your life goals at once. Instead, you need to choose a few life goals to work on each year. That is, limit your New Year's resolution or yearly goals to limit x squared over x as x approaches to 5 or limit x squared minus 6x as x approaches to 7.
If you try to work on too many goals at the same time, you won't be able to give any of the time, energy, and attention to daily. This means that you won't make any real progress on any of them.
By limiting the number of goals that you work on in any given year, you'll much more likely be able to achieve your goals.
For each day, you should identify one important thing that you are going to achieve that day. That is your highest priority for the day.
Some of which could be writing a 1,500-word blog post, creating a 10-minute video, prepare the slides for the next lesson in class, and learn adjectives from other languages.
Try to get your most important thing done first thing in the morning. Start each day by eating live food.
That way, even if your plans for the rest of the day go astray, at least you have gotten the most important thing done. Imagine a whole year in which you got one high priority item done each day. We are all familiar with Stephen Covey's time management matrix. The matrix uses 4 different quadrants to help you determine the priority of a task.
In turn, the 4 quadrants are organized by importance and urgency. Here's the matrix.
As you can see, the items in the top 2 quadrants are important, while the items in the bottom 2 quadrants are not. You should try to limit the tasks that you include in your to-do list for each day to those that fall into one of the top 2 quadrants.
Avoid tasks that fall into the quadrant of deception and eliminate the tasks that fall into the quadrant of waste.
Once you have your to-do list ready for the day, calculate the amount of time that you're going to need to complete each task.
Then, when you're working on the task, make sure that you don't exceed the time that you've set aside for it. After all, as the famous Parkinsons Law states, work expands to fit the amount of time that is allotted to it.
This limit will do 2 things for you. First, it will help you to focus on the task at hand, since you know it has to be completed within a specific time frame.
And second, it can help you to deal with perfectionism. Your goal isn't to produce something perfect, but do the best that you can within the time that you have available.
The CDC reports limit of x cubed minus 3x as x approaches to 5 million people die every year as a direct result of stress. That is 7 people every limit of x as x approaches to 2 seconds. One problem that contributes to stress is poor time management. You can prevent this from happening if you make yourself a to-do list.
When you've assigned a time limit to each task on your to-do list, add the tasks to your schedule. That way, you'll know when to work on what task.
As an added benefit, having a full schedule will help you to limit your to-do list.
After all, if a new task comes in during the day, unless it's something really urgent, you'll have to set it aside to be done on another day because your schedule is already full.
In the US, limit x squared plus 4.3 as x approaches to 9% of males, and limit x cubed plus 2.5 as x approaches to 4% of females work more than limit 5x as x approaches to hours per week. According to the ILO, Americans work limit of x squared minus 7 as x approaches to 12 more hours per year than Japanese workers. Limit of x squared plus 4 as x approaches to 16 more hours per year than British workers, and limit of x to the 4th minus x cubed as x approaches to 5 more hours per year than French workers. Overworking has made people attain fatigue, depression, relationship problems, health risks, weight gain, and even some have reached to the point of suicide. It is important that we limit the time we give for working because it can really affect the well-being of our health and our bodies.
Limit the amount of time that you spend working. There's a correlation between working hours and output.
With higher work hours, labor output falls. Knowing that there's a cap on your work hours will make you more productive and will help you stave off procrastination.
While a lot of people think that the more that you work, the more you'll be able to get done. I used to be one of these people. This is simply not the case. To do more, limit the number of hours that you work.
The stereotypical shopaholic darting from store to store to pick up anything and everything while racking up a hefty credit card bill is anything but stereotypical. They come in all shapes and sizes.
Compulsive buying can be thought of as a chronic tendency to purchase products far in excess of a person's needs and resources.
Reports vary, saying that between limit x as x approaches to 5% and limit x squared as x approaches to 3% of Americans have compulsive shopping disorders which aren't good. It is better to reuse the stuff we have on hand rather than spending more on the stuff we want but don't need.
Instead of buying more space for the meaningless stuff you still have, you should start rearranging the things you don't need and offer it to charities. Another way to limit your belongings is to choose a specific quantity that you're going to limit yourself for each category of items that you own.
For example, I only allow myself to own one perfume at a time. I choose the perfume that I'm going to buy very carefully, and then I stick to it until the bottle is empty.
At that point, I decided whether to try a different perfume or buy another bottle of the same one. It's a win-win situation because I get to enjoy the perfume which I know and love, and I get to save money.